welcome back to the Second and Two podcast. I'm your host, TB, with my co-host, producer extraordinaire. Yep, I gotta say it, the Riz God, Jody. What's up, bro?
What's up, man? I don't think you have to say it. You just choose to say it. You know what I mean?
The fans, they love it, bro. They clamor for it. I gotta say it. Dude, what's up, bro? I feel like so behind the curtain for everybody, I've been in Alaska for the last week. So I haven't
Yeah.
seen Joe since we recorded like
2 weeks ago
It's
on that
really
back
been like, yeah, it's been like 2 weeks off. I mean, everyone else has gotten content week to week, but like we recorded some doubles so that we wouldn't miss out on a week. But it's been a couple weeks since we've seen each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been some time. I saw you were doing your thing on the sled out there. Looked like you were having a good time.
Bro, it's a miracle I didn't break any bones. All I ended up with was like some cuts on my face and like a chunk of ear taken off.
You were out there like Holyfield, bro?
Dude, no, actually, like the tip of my ear was like coming off, bro.
Damn.
Because I went down this hill in this, they call it Killer Hill, bro.
Oh, so it lived up to its name a little bit.
So I went down the hill in this sled with this giant black sled it was like a 2-man sled. And I went with a student, and I was like in front of him. I decided to go, I'll take the front. Like I'll be cool. I don't know what I'm trying to prove. I don't know what I'm trying to prove to these kids, but I decide I'm going to take the front. Kid sits behind me. And we literally catch air. Like we hit a little bump on the way down, and we like literally catch air. And the flimsiness of the sled, just like we start tilting, and like we tilt forward, and I just land like face and ear first in the ice and slide.
So
yeah, I mean, it was icy. It was icy. Yeah, and I had like a couple scratches. It looked like a cat just went up and like scratched my forehead, and then the tip of my ear was like taken off. It was I mean, it was a lot of fun. I'm not trying to make it sound like I didn't choose this and have a great time, but yeah, the name lived up to its hill, the hill lived up to its name. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, bro. Had a good time. The moral of the story is I had a great time in Alaska. It was really fun. A lot of snow, like beautiful place. I would definitely go back and visit. It's an incredible place to be. So that's the moral of the story.
And more importantly, you're ready to get back into it after a week off. That's the other side of the story.
True. I am on spring break this week. So I basically got 2 weeks off from school, from teaching. So
that's fun.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. What'd you do with your week off, essentially, from podcasting?
Not much different than what I was doing any other day of the week. I get off of work, go to the gym, come home, play some video games, and it's a constant cycle. The only good thing about it was like I had all the opportunity of when I wanted to edit the second one. You know what I mean? It's like it's not like I had to sit down on a Friday night, Saturday morning, or whatever. It was just like, all right, I'll do it today. Do a little bit here, a little bit there. Get it done over time,
Yeah, I got you.
So yeah, that was fun.
I mean, it lightened the load, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. That's cool.
I guess the only other difference was I met up with one of my buddies that lives out here. Went and got a beer one of the days. Probably Tuesday or Wednesday or something. Day we normally record. And
that's cool. That's a good thing. I mean, you get to hang out with me, so I guess you got to hang out with somebody. I mean, this guy's not as cool as me, but like whatever.
But definitely haven't known him as long. That's a true statement.
I'm not jealous, but it's cool. It's cool, bro. I'm just on the other side of the country, so it'll be fine. Like, we'll hang out soon. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Let's get on to what the people came for, which is NFL draft coverage. Remind me, what are we talking today?
Today we're looking at some O linemen, more specifically the tackles. It's going to be a good one. Lot of good. Oh, okay. I shouldn't say a lot of good dudes. I don't know about the grand scheme of all the tackles, but out of the 5 we chose, there's some good ones for sure.
Oh, I think the top of this tackle class is really good. I mean, I don't know if it has the depth that some of the other positions have, but like at the top, it's really top heavy. I mean, there are some really good players.
Yeah.
I really like, especially the top 4 that we're going to talk about today. But yeah, this is a pretty good group of 5. About as good a group of 5 players as any of the other position groups that you can throw out here. So these guys are dudes, no question.
Yeah, got it. But yeah, so the first guy we're taking a look at today for the offensive tackles, we're looking at a right tackle. It's Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. He sits at 6'5", 333 pounds. Played for 4 years. And he played 46 games, so almost all of them. He allowed 12 sacks. He only had 1 hold over that time frame. That's impressive.
Yeah.
So I guess Tennessee runs a zone scheme. That's what you're telling me right there. 64%
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah, most of their it's trying to find stats for offensive linemen is
tough.
different. Is
Yeah,
the
it
kids say
doesn't really
built
exist.
the kids say built different these days? Like finding stats for O-line, that's different, bro. So this is a little different, yes.
And then can you tell me what the YPA behind the same?
So to explain a few of these things, number one, like scheme, there are gap schemes and zone schemes, right? So zone, I think most of us know what zone is, which is literally like we're either zoning left or zoning right. So I'm taking the gap to my left or my right, and whoever shows up in that gap, that's who I have,
Mhm.
right? And I'm trying to wash him out. So whether or not I have to reach someone or I have to work second level, maybe I have to combo a guy to work up to the back or whatever, like, right, a 5-man offensive line, and sometimes if you add a tight end, 6 guys are working together to move in a singular direction and build like a wall. I mean, the easiest way that I always heard it explained, or the most efficient way, was like a herd of elephants. Like it's just we're parading one way and we're trying to move the defense that way. We're trying to move the line of scrimmage that way. And then the offense, the running back is just going to get behind and he has an aiming point and he's going to try and get to that aiming point and then either, find the hole, cut where the hole ends up, right?
Yeah.
So Tennessee ran a lot of zone last year. There he was in his career, Darnell Wright, over the course of his career, he ran zone 64% of the time. You'll see, I think every single one of these guys ran more zone than they ran gap scheme. And so gap scheme, a little different. That's like power and counter, right? What people traditionally call power and counter, where we're going to down block, down block, down block. We're going to have a pull with a kick guy, a kick out block, and then a wrap who's going to wrap in the hole, right? And so we're going to kick out the end man line of scrimmage and we're going to wrap inside for the first backer. And everyone else is down blocking away. And so we're really trying to open up a hole in a certain gap. Like, this is B gap power. We're going to open up the B gap right here, right? So most teams nowadays, modern footballs, you'll see more zone than gap scheme. But the lower that zone percentage is, the more versatile you could argue that guy is. He's done more, right? So I think Darnell Wright, 64%, is one of the lower zone rates. That means he ran a little more gap scheme than some of the other guys, which means you can arguably do some more things with him. The YPA behind is yards per attempt when ran behind.
Okay.
So this is like an advanced metric that I found. Shout out to 33rd Team. They're a football website specific that does a lot of these different kinds of advanced metric stats, and they'll do it specifically for draft eligible players. They're really big on the draft.
Okay.
So if anyone's interested, 33rd Team, that's a pretty good resource to check out. I like them personally because I think they give relevant information. They do realistic
numbers or
and relevant information. That this is where all these stats actually came from, was 33rd Team. So like the holds, only one hold. I agree. I that jumped out to me. And you'll see, like, throughout this group, like, the holds and sacks numbers are really low for all 5 of these guys. And I was like, man, is that real? Like, part of me almost thought that might not be true, but I'm trusting 33rd Team's numbers. And they're saying, hey, he only got called for holding once. Then he only got called for holding once. But yeah, 5.9 yards per attempt. when ran behind. That's pretty good. I mean, that means this guy's moving people. So any of that, as I explained it, not make sense or stand out to you, Joe? Like any of
No,
that make
it all works for me. I think you did a pretty good job explaining the difference between the different schemes.
okay?
And I mean, when you were talking about with yards per attempt behind,
Yeah.
I figured it had to do something with the running back getting rushing yards, but I couldn't tell you what the letters
Yeah.
stood for.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with offensive linemen. Generally, you know, obviously you're evaluating how good are they in pass pro, but then how good are they at, like, moving the line of scrimmage when you're trying to
Yeah.
run behind them? Like, what are they doing? And then even when you're running away from them, are they making those cutoff blocks and sealing the backside, all that? So these are stats that I felt like were relevant in assessing like the strengths of these guys and trying to differentiate, you know, who's better than who, whatnot. We're always searching for numbers that can help us quantify, you know, how good a player is. And you know, you try and combine those numbers with what you see on film, with, you know, who those guys are, as much as you can know them as people, and then you put all that together and you have an evaluation. I mean, it's not an exact science, but you get the point. So when I look at Darnell Wright, right, the first thing I noticed for him was his finishing. Like, he finishes blocks with a nasty attitude. And Joe, as someone who played both running back, fullback, a little offensive line, right, in high school,
Yeah.
you know how important this is, like, to have that attitude as a blocker. I thought maybe I'd let you speak to that a little bit here.
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, you start the game, you finish the game. Like, you got to give credit to like a lot of linemen in general. Like, they're where everything is set in the beginning of the game. You get the first contact of anyone, unless you could include special teams first. That
Mm-hmm.
that depends. But besides that, I mean, you set the tone. That's the word I've been trying to figure out this whole 3 sentences is you attack the dude at every play. You don't ever
Mm-hmm.
really get rest. You know what I mean? Especially O
Yeah.
line. So it's good to finish the plays like that, just so you know, like they got to realize like you're not quitting ever. You're not gonna let up. You're gonna keep battling until that whistle every play.
Yeah. So we'll watch a little bit of what he does. I mean, he loves to put guys on the ground. He even likes to lay on them after he's done, just to remind them he put him
Yeah.
there. I mean, you love to see offensive linemen with that kind of attitude. So here you go, little video him against Clemson this year in the bowl. As you said before, Joe, he's a right. Talk about in a little bit, but just like I watched that and said, I only need
Yeah.
one clip to show you what kind of attitude and nastiness this guy
Yeah.
has. Like, yeah, he said, I'm gonna throw you to the ground and then I'm gonna jump on you and lay on you to remind you who put you there.
Yeah.
That's nasty. That's called finishing a block. Like, you love to see that from an offensive lineman. He loves to drive. He's very good at driving his. When offensive linemen in the run game specifically, are they moving people? Right? It's one thing to make contact with a guy. It's a different thing if you we used to call it monster feet, which was just like those
The
feet.
choppy steps or
Yes,
okay.
and moving a guy, right? Like those
Yeah.
steps you make on contact. And then you combine that with a guy of his size, 6'5", 330, right? Nasty attitude. And then all of a sudden you have an elite run blocker right away. You know, the size, the attitude, and then the technique of my feet move really well on contact. So you see they're running a zone scheme. This is a good example of that zone scheme right here, right? And his block is a cutoff block, the 3 technique. He's trying to not allow that guy to create penetration in the B gap. And he does a really good job, if you notice, taking this guy and moving him laterally 4 yards from where he's supposed to be. Now, LSU makes this play in the backfield, but that's not Darnell Wright's fault, right? He takes his man and moves him out of the hole that they're trying to run into. So that's an example of how he drives his feet on contact. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can even see in that play he takes him literally the other tackle basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So then the next thing, or the last thing I should say, that I love about Darnell Wright is he has this great initial punch. in his pass pro, right?
Yeah.
Right, to keep a defensive lineman from getting up the field, you have to stop their progress, right? So you can see the kick step and the punch, but he plays with great leverage. He sits down. He's not a leaner. That's one thing that you really don't like, is if a guy is a leaner, he's leaning on all the time because he's off balance. So he sits down in his stance. He has great punches. He has really good length in his arms. So it's like a boxer, when a boxer can punch, has that nice right hook, and they've got the length to them, like they're always at an advantage. And so, pass pro, people probably don't think of it this way, but can often be like boxing, right? One-on-one D-line, O-line, pass pro here. So here you go. Here's a great example of it. This is against Florida. The beauty of all these clips, right? I've shown you him against Clemson, LSU, and Florida. So he's playing dudes every week. Like he's playing NFL level talent all the time, right? So here you go. See that, like that long punch, and he's just able to kind of keep that guy at bay. And then that guy throws his punch, and he's able to just grab him and bring him down. Like that's pretty good stuff. Again, here he is on the right side against Georgia, and boom, puts the guy in the ground in pass pro. He just does such a good job, I think, with his long arms and his initial punch and his pass protection. This is a guy that I've seen a lot of people talking about him as potentially a top 15 pick, and that doesn't surprise me when you watch his film. I saw, who was it? One of the NFL talking heads, one of the guys on, I think it was on ESPN. It wasn't McShay or Mayock or Piper. He was doing Monday Night Football before the guys took over this year. But anyway, Louis Riddick, I think, was who it was, kind of said like he thinks Darnell Wright is going to be like a Pro Bowl tackle, legitimately, like, a stalwart at right tackle for whoever takes him. And I think that is very much so true. I see that on film when you look at his numbers. Giving up the 12 sacks is not great, and I think that's where he's going to need to clean up a little bit to become that kind of player. But you can see like the traits of that kind of player are there already. And I think if he cleans some of those other things up, allows his punch to be what we just saw on film more consistently, I think he's already an elite run blocker right now. You can see he's a mauler. And I think the trickiest part about him for evaluators is he played right tackle in college, which matters because most teams view the left tackle as the most important, given that's generally your right-handed quarterback's blind side. And so that's where most teams put their best pass rushers, is on the quarterback's blind side. So most of the best pass rushers are on the right, which means your best tackles are on the left in general, right? That's just a generality. It's not a 100% truth, but it's a generality. And so a team who drafts him is going to have to decide, like, do they value his talent at right tackle enough to take him super high in the draft? Or do you try and move him to left tackle, which can always be tricky? And people don't understand. Kick stepping left or right is not just like, yes, it's opposite footwork completely, right? So
your
like
hand placement on the ground's different. There's a lot of things that.
Yes, I think people who have not played that position or coached it in any way, like, don't understand how difficult it's like. Oh, we'll just move him to left tackle. It's like, no, dude, that's not how it works, man. Like, okay, I have a different hand on the ground. My body position is different. I'm kicking and sliding with different feet now. Like, all of it is completely different and opposite, like you said. And you're laughing because you're like, dude, I've been there. I know this is completely different. And it is. So in my mind, he is a right tackle, and I would not move him. So I wouldn't draft him going, well, we want him to play left tackle because it's a position of greater value. It's like, you know what? The guy's a right tackle, let him play right tackle and let him be one of the best right tackles in the league. You know what I'm saying? I think a great, this isn't my comp for him, but a great guy to look at in terms of that, it's like Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson was a top 5 draft pick, but he's been a right tackle, and that's what he plays. And he's been a freaking good right tackle. I don't think the Eagles would say, man, I wish we would have drafted a left tackle at that spot. And like, no, they're pretty good with like having one of the best right tackles in the game for basically 10 years, So I think he's a right tackle. A great comp for him to me is Tristan Wirfs, drafted with the Buccaneers a couple years ago, was on their Super Bowl winning team, is a right tackle for the Bucks and
Yeah.
was drafted in the first round as a right tackle and has been very good, right? So I'll just show you some clips from him against Khalil Mack 2 years ago in that Super Bowl winning season when they played the Bears. Like, boom, that anchor down, that punch, those long arms, looks very Darnell Wright to me. Same thing, that punch, boom. You're not going to bull rush him either. Like, he's put together, very similar size, that like 6'5", 330 range with those long arms, ability to anchor, drives his feet on contact, finishes blocks. I think those are very similar kind of players. And Tristan Wirfs has become, I can't remember if he's made the Pro Bowl yet, but if he hasn't, he will. Like, he's that good. And I think Darnell Wright is that kind of player too. That's why if you look at draft projections right now, he's moved up in recent weeks. He's now, there are some mocks that have him going top 10, as high as 9.
Oof.
He's somewhere between, he's a surefire first rounder. That's what it looks like. He should be drafted between picks 9 and 28. I would be surprised if he falls past like 17-ish, you know?
Yeah.
But some teams interested. Looks like the Bears, that's where he could go, you know, in that top 10. The Bengals could use another, you know, they're still working on their offensive line. They could use another right tackle. The Jaguars, as they look to protect Trevor Lawrence. And then the Chargers, you know, they have Rashawn Slater on the left. Could they use a guy at the right tackle, you know, to, you know, be just solidify that the both tackle positions for the next 10 years with Justin Herbert? Would make a lot of sense. Would be really smart. Obviously, there are other teams in the mix, maybe the Steelers, team like that. But Joe, anything stand out about Darnell Wright for you?
I mean, basically, you talked about it with his punch. I said he was good at pass pro. Granted, most of the plays I've seen were him in the pass pro. I said he was strong and he was patient. So when he's kicking back, you could see him just like staying in front of the defender as long as he can until he needs to like get that punch off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with that one. That was like my main focus on that. Let's see, I have some combine numbers for him. That's about all I could really find. So his 40 time was a 5:01. His 10-yard was 1.81. He had a 29-inch vert and a 9.6 on the broad jump. So he, you know, decently athletic, not nothing over the top, but I mean
he's also
good
6'5",
tackle.
330.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, when you consider that, yeah, pretty good athlete. Yeah, I got you. I mean, what do you think in terms of teams? Is there one of the teams that I mentioned, or maybe a team I didn't mention that you were thinking about when you're thinking about his draft stock here?
I'd say probably the Jaguars. You know, they coming off making the playoffs. You know, they're looking to just keep it rolling for another year or two at least, while they still got time to make moves for Trevor Lawrence on that rookie contract. I think that would be good. Chargers,
Makes
same
sense.
situation with Justin Herbert. You know, I think they got one left on his. I think he's 1 year older.
Yeah.
And then the Bengals can't have him go there. He's gonna be taking jobs from our guy Hakeem. So maybe that's the place he's not gonna go. I hope.
Not the Bengals. Okay. Not the Bengals. No, you know what? Hakeem welcomes competition.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he's open to it, but he's gonna beat him out at the end of the day. But you know, we need our guy on the field.
Friend of the pod, Hakeem. We're rooting for him. So not the Bengals for any of these tackles. Yeah. All right, sounds good. Who we got next?
The next guy we're gonna look at is Broderick Jones out of Georgia. He's 6'5", 311 pounds. Played for 3 years. He's got 27 games during that time. 2 sacks allowed. Let's see, no holds on him. That's, you know, just like the last one, very impressive. He played 67% in zone schemes, and dang, they did pretty well running behind this man. 7.5 yards.
Yeah, so Broderick Jones he's probably got the highest ceiling of any of the guys in this group just because of he's got freaky athleticism, like for real. I know he didn't he didn't do everything at the combine, I know that, but do you have any of his combine numbers handy?
Yeah, so his 40 time was a 4.97, so a little bit faster. His 10 yards was 1.74, also little faster. 30-inch vert and a 9-foot on the broad jump.
So, I mean, he's a pretty good athlete for someone at 310 pounds.
Yeah.
Again, ran a lot more zone, closer up in that 67%. So 2/3 of the time they're running zone. But you'll see he's great in space. And so when he was allowed to pull, he was really good at it. They 7.5 yards per attempt behind him is really impressive.
Yeah.
And he only gave up those 2 sacks. Now, granted, almost half the games that Darnell Wright played. So he's a lot more raw and inexperienced. He basically played for the 2 years where they won their national championships.
Yeah,
but
the back-to-back.
Yeah, but he Broderick Jones is a really good player. He's less experienced, so you're talking about a freaky athlete who has less snaps. So it's always kind of a concern at the tackle spot specifically, just because there's so much that goes into it in terms of development. So you just don't want him to struggle early and then never get it. But I think athletically he's as good as they come. I mean he's like made in the lab to play tackle in the NFL. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So number one, obviously my strength of his is athleticism. Like he's really mobile for a guy sitting at 311 pounds. Great lateral movement and pass protection and zone blocking schemes where he has to work to get across the defender's face. So we'll watch a couple of clips of that right now.
I'm assuming you might have some of these. He was pulling a decent amount that I seen. So that was one of the notes I had for him. You see him coming around the edge, making a block.
It'll pop off here in a second, but this is him over in the corner of the screen. So here we go. This is him running out in the screen game, just absolutely crushing people. Again, him leading the way. He's a left tackle, obviously, so a little different here. Again, he's just athletically, he's blocking all these little guys out on the edge, and he's moving, and he's just moving people. Like his athleticism is freaky. Look at his kick step right here in Bass Pro. So all of that, like athletically, he's just gifted, and so that translates to these blocks in space that he makes. Here he is pulling right against LSU. I mean, he mauls people in open space. He's so good at tackles, especially tackles and the guards sometimes too. Like struggle to find like those little guys in space and get hats on them, and he does it. I mean, watch this is illegal. Like this is illegal in 50 states right here. That's just not even fair. Like poor corner is just getting destroyed. So like he's awesome in blocks in space because he's so athletically gifted. I think whether it's screen, toss, getting to the second level, pulling, he's a sick athlete that plays tackle. Just happens to play tackle. I think he's one of the better athletes you'll see coming out of the draft that play tackle. And then lastly, you combine that athleticism, the ability to go block in space, the lateral movement. Sometimes guys like that are a little lighter, or they're a little, I guess the word I would use is softer, right? So you can like bull rush guys like that because they're so good on their feet that they're sitting back.
Yeah.
But like a couple of the other tackles in this draft, I think he's actually really tough to bull rush because he just anchors so well in pass protection. He sits back in that stance, but he lets all 311-pound frame just take over while his hands do the work. Like you're not just going to push 300 pounds backwards, right?
Yeah.
And that shows up for sure when he anchors in pass pro. So you'll see it here. Here he goes. This is him against who is it? Mississippi State, right? Boom. So he just takes guys and he just locks them. Here he is again against Vanderbilt, I believe, South Carolina. Same thing. He just anchors, right? So watching his film, he's athletically gifted, but he's strong. He can anchor. So he's got a lot of the physical tools that you want. He's just a little bit more raw, a little bit more inexperienced, but I think he's a prototypical left tackle that teams are looking for in terms of athleticism, feet, his height, weight profile. I think he's going to be effective in a modern NFL scheme that mixes in a lot of screens into its passing game. You're going to run zone and let him get up to the second level. I think teams can be smart and do things like pull with him. I'm not saying he's like quite the athlete that like Trent Williams is. I don't know that
Yeah.
there's ever been a tackle who's quite Trent Williams, but like, kind of in that mold where you can do a lot with him. He reminds me a lot of a guy who goes under the radar right now that no one talks about, but has been like a 10-year veteran with the Falcons and has just been good for a long time. Jake Matthews, who was another, top 10 pick in his draft. I think it was the 2014 draft when he was taken as a left tackle. But here he is a couple years ago, back when the Commanders were a different team name out there in Washington, and Julio Jones played for him. But like you can see him out on the edge, right? Didn't that look super similar?
Yeah,
The way he just destroys a DB, right? I think they're very similar type of players where their athleticism is really useful, but they're great in pass pro, pretty decent run blockers. You know what I'm saying? Like, not necessarily Jake Matthews is not talked about as like the best left tackle in the league, but he's very productive. He's anchored that left side of their offensive line for nearly 10 years now. I think Broderick Jones is a similar kind of player. Yeah, I don't know that he's going to get the love as like being one of the better tackles in the league, but the guy is going to anchor the left side of your offensive line for a long time, as long as he, is able to get the reps early and figure it out. I think, again, the only thing that makes me nervous about him is just the limited experience, but I think he's got all the physical tools that, you want to see. So, I know you talked about his combine numbers. Was there anything that you saw, Joe, that you wanted to mention too?
No, I mean, you pretty much touched everything I wrote down. I said he's good at pass pro, good at pulling, talked about briefly earlier. And I just said he was quick. And I mean, that translates to him being good in pulling. You had to have a good couple first steps to get ahead of the running back and stay ahead to get that block.
Yeah,
But
no doubt.
in terms of your projections for teams to go to, one that stands out immediately, I mean, it's going to go for any of these guys, is the Titans. I mean, they're losing Taylor Lewan. I don't know who replaced him last year, but I mean, they're getting dudes hurt all the time. At least that's what they talk about on their podcast.
Yeah.
So they could definitely use a left tackle for sure.
Yeah. I mean, right now he's another one that's a surefire first round pick at this point. Seen him as high as pick 11 all the way to 29. And yep, teams interested. The Jets. Mekhi Becton has been really working this offseason. Could be a guy who looks like he's lost like 50 pounds and he's doing a really good job. I mean, he was 400, so he had 50 pounds. It's not like he's lightweight now, I mean, but he looks fantastic is what should be mentioned. And so the Jets may be looking to say, hey, we got Mekhi Becton on one side and take another guy for the other. The Titans, yep, Taylor Lewan, their stalwart at left tackle for so long. He is gone, so they need a replacement there. The Steelers, a team that I mentioned earlier, they just are still looking to upgrade their offensive line in general. And then the Patriots, I think another team, that I think they're looking to continue. They're always looking to get younger on the O-line. So those are four teams that I saw, in conjunction with Broderick Jones. But I like what you said about the Titans. It makes a lot of sense given the scheme that they run. I think they run a creative enough mixture of screen and toss and power counter zone with the guys that they have, the weapons that they have right now, that it would make a lot of sense for him to go there. I think he would fit well in what they do.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, I wish I looked up more on like the actual teams and like their needs, or like who got like contracts left on them and stuff. That would really help. But I just know that for the Titans because I listen to those dudes' podcasts. So.
No, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It makes a ton of sense. Who are we talking next?
The next guy we're looking at, probably one of my favorites out of this whole group, is gonna be Paris Johnson Jr. And as I mentioned, I'm listening to Bussing with the Boys, right? This fool was on there today, so I had to check out what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I didn't know I had him on my list that high already, but after hearing him talk, it's just crazy. You know what I mean? It brings that to the next level.
Yeah.
But anyways, before it sounds like I'm going off on this guy, he sits at 6'6", 313. Played left tackle for them. We're looking at the right tackle later on too. He played 3 years. He played for 30 games in the 3 years. He allowed 4 sacks, 1 hold, and Ohio State, they're going crazy in the zone scheme,
Zone heavy.
82%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they got 6.2 yards behind him on their carries.
All right. Paris Johnson Jr. is like for sure my favorite tackle in the draft.
Uh-huh.
He might be. It's so hard when you're doing full rankings, but he's right now. He's sitting in my top 5 of my board. I love this guy.
Of your overall people?
Yeah,
Hell
of
yeah.
everybody. He's sitting up there in my top 5 right now. And we have another guy, another tackle that we're going to talk about that I love too. And
Yeah,
I think they're right there next to each other. But Paris Johnson is my 1A right now. Yeah, if you know anything about Ohio State, you know they love zone. So that's not a surprise. He ran zone 82% of the time. That just makes sense, right? But the thing that's different and interesting about Paris Johnson is that earlier in his career, he played right guard. And then he transitioned to left tackle. So we talked about earlier how hard it is to go from the right side to the left side or vice versa. Not only did this guy do that, but he also changed positions entirely. He went from being a right guard to a left tackle. So to me, that says he can play anywhere on the offensive line besides center, basically. Like he's shown that he could do any of that. So when you put all this stuff together, he's legitimately, he's my favorite prospect in terms of offensive lineman period in this draft. But like you said, I could go on and on. Let's just get to his strengths. Let's just get to why I like him so much. Number one, he's nasty. We talked about the finishing with Darnell Wright. This guy is just nasty. Like, again, one of the most important things you look for in an O-lineman is whether or not they look for work and if they play with an attitude to finish guys. Like, the thing I love about him that's more than just finishing blocks is if he doesn't have any work, he's going to go find it. He's going to go find it. You and I are probably thinking of the same play against Notre Dame. So we'll just get to it. He loves contact.
Yeah, and he's not afraid of contact on my nuts. That's for sure.
It's exactly right. Like, okay, here we go. So here's a play against Notre Dame this year against Foskey. And he just, like, again, kind of similar to Darnell Wright, right? Where he lays on a guy. Watch this one. I got no one in front of me. I'm just going to pick somebody off and put him on the ground. I love that, dude. That's the stuff you want from an offensive lineman. Is like, I'm going to finish blocks and I'm going to lay on you and let you know I beat you. And then if I don't have anyone, I'm going to go find work. I'm going to go find it. I'm not just going to hang out. He takes no plays off. I love that. I love that he's just nasty and he's mean. Like, he plays football mean. I think it's a common theme people will probably notice as they watch all of these evaluations from us. I love guys who play football with a freaking attitude that go looking to hunt people when they play the game. Like, I love that. Those are the kind of guys that are just, one, generally better players, two, play with an attitude that, like, ignites your whole team, right?
Yeah,
and three, like,
just for yourself, it gives you that motivation to just keep going after it every play.
That was going to be three. It's like guys who are highly motivated to get better every time. So as a prospect, that's what you want, right? So I think Paris Johnson, he plays with that nasty attitude that I love. The next thing is similar to what we talked about with Broderick Jones. He just has this great ability to anchor. Like, don't try to bull rush Paris Johnson Jr., bro, because you won't be able to. He's so good that if he gets his hands on you and he just anchors down using all 313 pounds and 36 plus inch arms, like, dude, you're toast. Like, that's you're not gonna bull rush this guy. So here you go. Ability to anchor. Some more Notre Dame film. He obviously had a great game against Notre Dame. Look at this. That guy's not going anywhere. Right? Here we go against Iowa. That guy's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. None of these guys are going anywhere. Here's again against Iowa. You're not going anywhere. Like, dude, just he stonewalls people. When people try and go into him or through him, they're not going anywhere. He just anchors down. He's a sick athlete, but he's so good at just hunker down. You're not getting through me. And then the last thing is his versatility and high motor. I've kind of mentioned both these things already, but the fact that he played right guard and left tackle in college, meaning he can realistically play 4 out of the 5 positions. He's smart. He's versatile. He's coachable. Like, all those things exist when a guy had that kind of career in college. And then he's athletic enough, continues playing through the echo of the whistle, where he's pass blocking, run blocking, just a phenomenal athlete with all the intangibles you want. Like, again, he doesn't take plays off. Like, that's what we mean when we say high motor. This guy, yes, he looks for work, but, like, he does not take any plays off. So again, start off with this Notre Dame game, but just boom. He's just driving. He's driving. He's going through the echo of the whistle. Same thing. Driving, putting the guys on the ground, going through the echo of the whistle. Here he goes against Michigan State. Driving. Versatility, athleticism, high motor, just keeps rolling. He hurdles a guy at the end. Again, I'm going to drive. I'm going to find work. My motor keeps pushing. I really like this guy. I think he's a mauler in the run game, but he's so good in pass pro too. Here he is out here leading the charge on the screen. You know, I mean, he has all the best traits of elite left tackles. Even though he plays left tackle and Lane Johnson's a right tackle, he reminds me, like, from a talent perspective, of Lane Johnson. Very similar size, shape, body, all that. Reminds me a lot of Lane Johnson from that perspective, even though they play two different positions. Just the athleticism and drive that Lane Johnson plays with, and like the sort of nastiness and the motor. I mean, here's that game against. Sorry, Joe. If you're Broncos fans, look away. This is a game a couple years ago where Lane Johnson absolutely dominated. But just watch him. I love that he gives the little. He goes pulling. Like, these are the things that I think Paris Johnson can do at the next level, even as a left tackle, cutting off, sealing, like all that.
I think nice seal for sure.
I think that's the kind of potential that Paris Johnson has as a left tackle, not even as a right tackle. You know, so I think he projects as a legitimate left tackle at the next level for years to come. His athleticism makes him good in pass protection. He's excellent getting to the second level. He's awesome out in the open field. And if you put a guy in front of him or who's trying to go through him, he's going to maul that guy. So yeah, Paris Johnson Jr., he's my favorite draft prospect. And he's my favorite guy in the draft that plays tackle.
No, I agree with that statement. I mean, so I'm glad you mentioned that he played on the right guard too, because just hearing this dude talk, he sounded like he was really smart. So I could get into a quick story about this guy. He said that his mom was an advisor at Ohio. Was it Miami, Ohio? Is that what it's called?
Okay, yeah.
So he was like, "Yeah, mom, just like set up all my school schedule. Like, you'll get it figured out." So as an athlete, he was taking 18 credits his freshman year. What he said.
Oof.
And when it came to he graduated in 3 years to add on to it. He already has his degree. He could go back if he really wanted to. Obviously, he's in the league. But yeah, so that stood out to me. And I guess like his capstone, it was him and another dude, and I guess they just killed it. So all that just makes sense, being that he played all across the line basically. If you put right guard to left tackle, I mean, you know a lot.
Yeah, so I mean, then you add on, like, the guy is extremely smart, as you just said. Like, he can articulate, what all of those things he did in college. Like, and he graduated in 3 years, and like all that. Crazy. I mean, for an Ohio State guy, anyway. No, but honestly, like, he's what you want in a left tackle. Right now, seeing him going from pick 7 to 20. I'm surprised he's not mocked even higher. Like I said, I think I'm really high on this guy. I think of him as a top 5 pick. Maybe he does sneak in that top 5 if a team trades up, or if one of those teams that we're thinking is going to take a quarterback decides they're just going to take a left tackle. I think it would some of the teams, like the Texans with pick 2, they have a left tackle, right? So it's probably not them. Maybe the Cardinals at 3, I don't know, but there's someone who could trade up in there. It just makes sense, though, if he ends up being a top 5 pick. I wouldn't be shocked just because he's that good. But right now he's mocked somewhere between 7 and 20. Similar teams here, the Bears, the Jets, the Titans. And another team that I saw that kind of I thought was interesting was the Raiders, just because the Raiders already have a left tackle right now, Colton Miller, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
He did mention they were already in talks with him a little bit. He went and worked out for them or something, he was saying.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. And they asked him if they wanted, or like what would be his top 3 teams. and
okay.
2 are on this list right here. So he said the Bears and the Raiders. Raiders was because that's who he liked growing up or whatever.
Okay.
But the Bears, like that would be nasty with him and Justin Fields out there.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because the Bears feels like the Bears are gonna have their pick of like which Ohio State guy do you want to add to Justin Fields? Like you want Jackson Smith and Jigba or you want
Yeah.
Paris Johnson Jr.? I don't know that they could go wrong either way. You know, like it
Yeah.
feels like tackle's a greater need now that they traded for DJ Moore.
True. That is true.
But man, that's a tough choice. I wouldn't want to make that choice. But I don't know that you can go wrong either. So it's great. But yeah, Paris Johnson Jr. I think this podcast
Keep
would
your
love
eyes
to
out
see him
for
go
him.
to the Bears. Yeah, yeah. Who we got next?
Yeah, so the next guy we're looking at is the man on the other side of the line for him. It'll be DeJuan Jones, also Ohio State. Oh, okay. I stand corrected. So he played for 4 years there. He sits at 6'8", 374. He played 32 games in that time frame, allowed 3 stacks, only had 1 hold, and 83% the extra year. You know, they're still putting in work in that zone scheme.
Yeah,
And then 7 yards per attempt behind this man. A little bit better, but also another year.
yeah. DeJuan Jones is a massive human. This
Yeah,
guy's
he's a big guy.
6'8". It's like a basketball player, bro. Like 6'8", and he's nearly 400 pounds. Like he's approaching 400. And that was like the first thing that stood out when I watched him on film. Just like first strength that came out was like, okay, this guy's massive frame. Like he has an incredible frame, and it's really hard for edge rushers to get around him because he's just kind of like
Yeah.
he's so big.
He
It's like he
follows you up.
swallows. Yeah, seriously. Like it's like people can't. I don't know, dude. They just struggle to get around him. Like, I mean, here you go. I'll just let the film speak for itself. So this is against Iowa, right? Ooh. There he is again. He's a right tackle, so that's something to keep in mind. But even like he kind of gets beat there, you know what I'm saying? But like
Yeah.
so big, again, like dudes struggle to get around the bend on him, right? Like this guy can't get around that corner. He tries to spin back, and but he's so big, he kind of catches you even when you come back. So I think his massive frame is one of his biggest strengths. I mean, the next thing is his length. Now, Joe, I'll let you kind of take this is important. Let you do his combine numbers and whatnot, some of his measurables now, because that's going to play into what I talk about here in a second.
Okay. So he only did the 40 at the combine, if I'm being honest. He ran a 5.35, and the 10 yards was a 1.92.
Yeah. So not like the quickest guy.
No.
Athletically, he's not nearly as gifted as some of the other guys in this group. But what is crazy and why he's so attractive as a prospect is the things like you can't coach, right? He has some of those things. So one of those, he has the longest wingspan, according to Jim Nagy, the longest wingspan ever recorded at the Senior Bowl. 89 and a half.
That's crazy.
His wingspan translates to someone who would be 7'5".
Yeah.
And he's 6'8". Like, all right, like I mean, we talked about earlier why having long arms is so important in pass pro, right? Like, of course.
Yeah.
So, again, 6'8" with an 89.5-inch wingspan, I can't coach those things. So, if there are flaws, okay, I can try and coach some of the flaws out. I can't make you 6'8" with 89.5-inch wingspan. Like, that's just, I can't do that. So, that's why he's so high on boards because, like, dude, this guy's crazy. Like, his measurables are insane. And when you watch his film, it again, just like his massive frame shows up, here's his length. This is against Penn State, right? Just
Yeah.
He just puts a guy on the ground because he's so long. The guy can't really get hands on him, right? By the time you get hands on him, he's already gotten hands on you. Like you can't get around him. You're never going to be on balance rushing him because he's so long. So it allows him to sit back and you can never, right?
That one was funny. He reminded me of Draymond right there.
Yeah. Look at you see how he just golly, he's just so long. Again,
Yeah,
those
that
are just
first play we just seen that I wrote down he had vicious hands. You could just see it. He pushed him. He was like a defender right there. He pushed him in the pool and just laid on
yeah.
him like, "Yeah, you lost, bro."
And then so and obviously he played at the Senior Bowl. A couple of these guys did. I got to see a lot of these guys kind of in person. I will tell you for sure, Jawan Jones was like noticeably big. Like he stood out as a guy who was. You were like, who is that? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that was something I legitimately remember saying on the sideline, like, oh, who's that guy? Yeah, DeJuan Jones is huge. The last thing for him, really good first kick step in pass protection. That's that step that tackles take. I know, Joe, I know you know this, but
Yeah.
for anybody who doesn't know, that little kick and slide that that tackles take in pass pro, that's obviously for a reason. Keep guys unbalanced, and they're trying to gain ground and make that pocket long while not like just, giving up the inside rush, right? So he does a really good job of his kick step of being patient, and he's so big he can be patient because even if guys get kind of the jump on him, he's so long, they have such a far way to get around him. So he doesn't really let rushers get the jump on him getting up the field partially because he's so long, and then partially because he has this really fluid, really nice kick step. Here he is against Notre Dame this year. Here you go. Kick, boop, boop. Right. See, he's just so patient, gets his hands on you, those long arms. Does a really good job here of just keeping a great pocket for CJ Stroud. Again, patient, brings guys into him. He's got a nice patient kick step that works for him. I mean, it makes sense why CJ Stroud had such a good year the last couple of years, right? I mean, he had Juwan Jones and Paris Johnson blocking for him on each tackle. People were not getting beyond these guys. So when I look at like in terms of what he can do, he's like Darnell Wright. He's a right tackle. I would not mess with that. I would say he's going to stay at that position, transitioning to the NFL. I think he'll get a shot to start right away as a right tackle, but he's going to probably need to work on his body a little bit and some of his technique to become like a, game changing or like franchise right tackle. I think there's some stuff with him like mechanically that sometimes he's a leaner just because I think he's so big. It's like sometimes being so big can be a little bit of a disadvantage. It can make you less athletic. And so I saw some of that on his film, like where he's a little off balance. I mean, you even saw it in some of the clips there. Reminds me a lot of a guy who I mentioned earlier with the Jets. That's Mekhi Becton, who physically has everything that you could want, right? And that guy this summer or this offseason, I should say, has lost a ton of weight in an effort to be, more athletic and mechanically sound. And he looks great, by the way. But I think that's who I kind of see with DeJuan Jones, because Mekhi Becton's like one of the only other guys that you can look at and be like, oh, who's 6'8" and almost 400 pounds. It's pretty much Mekhi Becton.
Yeah.
So, and you see that guy when he's been healthy and in the lineup, he's been very good. And I think that's kind of the other concern with DeJuan Jones, is like being so big that maybe you're not going to be healthy. And so I think that's a great comp for him. You watch a little bit of Mekhi Becton film, and that's the thing. Mekhi Becton, when he's been healthy, has been awesome. So here he is playing left tackle for the Jets a couple years ago against the Chargers. And like that's Bosa, right? That's Joey Bosa, who was like, but a guy who was here he is again against the Raiders. I think that's who is that? I can't tell. But like again, Joey Bosa, who's in the running for like defensive MVP, he has no problem moving a guy like that when he gets his hands on him. And I think that's DeJuan Jones' ceiling, is being a guy like that who can move people in the run game for sure, and is athletically good enough that he can do really well in the pass game. I do think my biggest concerns with him are, just working on his body a little bit, but he has some of those things you can't teach, you can't coach. And so for that reason, he's definitely in my top 5 because I think he has a very good chance to be successful as long as he gets in the right organization who's going to take care of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
so, was there anything besides his semi-slow 40 time that that you saw?
I mean, I said his hands and just his physicality. Like we've seen it on some of the plays where he's moving people around.
Common theme.
Yeah. So those were the only 2 notes I really had for him. I mean, we'll see in my rankings. I didn't have him too high, but I mean, he's still a dude. He's got He's got plenty of experience. Just bigger frame.
Yeah,
makes things a little harder every now and again.
It is funny when you watch the tackles. It's hard not to be very repetitive and redundant with some of these guys because they're in like modern football. They're all kind of asked to do the exact same things. So the ones who are good kind of look like the other ones who are good. Like the nastiness and like the bit like that's just kind of a common theme among all these guys. There's a reason all these guys are top 5, in terms of our draft board at the position is because they are nasty. So it's like you try and find things to say that are special about each guy that are different, but also at the same time, there are certain things that are going to come up that are going to be the same. Yeah. It's not like, receiver or corner where guys are asked to do such radically different things. Like everyone runs zone and everyone passes the ball. So like all the tackles are doing the same stuff. You know what I mean? It's not a lot of differentiation in schematically or in terms of what they're asked to do. So it is, I get what you're saying. It's like gets a little repetitive, I think, with each of these guys. And luckily we only have one more guy to talk about after this. But right now, a lot of mocks have him in the second round. I think for a lot of reasons I said. He's that high because he has these qualities, but he's not quite a first round guy. I think because I think people are concerned in terms of his body and his athleticism isn't quite where some of the other guys are, and he's a right tackle. So you put all that together and he's a valuable player. He's just maybe not as valuable as some of these other guys, at least in the eyes of those drafting. So second round pick right now, somewhere between picks 31 and 49. And, pick 31 would be in the first round. So he maybe could sneak into that back end of the first round. I mean, the Chiefs do need another tackle, given that they lost. Now, theoretically, they need a left tackle. And DeJuan Jones is a right tackle, but maybe DeJuan Jones is a guy that exists there for them. And so maybe they take him. I don't know. I've seen a lot of stuff with the Chiefs because they lost their left tackle in the offseason. The Bengals, I know we said no Bengals, but they're showing up again. Yep. The Eagles lost their right tackle in free agency, or their left tackle in free agency, I should say. So that could be another landing spot. Or I'm sorry, the Eagles lost their left guard. Okay. Sorry. So maybe this is
if you wanted that competition with Lane Johnson. I was like, that's a bold.
Yeah. They got their tackles, but I think this is a projection of like maybe DeJuan Jones slides into guard. Theoretically, I don't know that I see that necessarily happening, but maybe. And then the Rams are another team that I kind of saw maybe at pick 36 in the top of the second round. I don't know that it's a high need for the Rams, and they do have a pretty good right tackle, but maybe again, if you're thinking of moving him to left or inside to guard, maybe that's where that shows up. But then again, I just think it makes life a lot different for him. So I'm not sure that I would do that. I think I would take him to keep him at right tackle. But there are some intriguing names here. Anything or is there anyone not on the list, Joe, that you could think of off the top of your head that you kind of feel like he would fit with?
Oh, like a team?
Yeah.
Ooh. Off the top of my head, I'm gonna just say like Dallas or something. I don't know.
Dallas is still looking to get younger on their O-line. I could see that.
That, and I was gonna say I just feel like they obviously run the ball a lot for one, and so like I don't know, you could put them in over there, let them be a little physical off the edge.
Yeah, let them cook, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Let them cook.
DeJuan cooks, you know what I
mean? All right, last guy. Who we got?
Last guy we're looking at is probably the other most talked about man coming out of this position. Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern.
Yeah, great name.
He's 6'4", 313. Played for 3 years, 33 games in those 3 years. He allowed 3 sacks, only had 1 hold. Little less heavy on the zone after Ohio State. So he's got 60% on the zone scheme and had 3.9 yards ran behind him. A little lower average too compared to most.
Yeah. His stuff is Skoronski's interesting because when you see that you're like, oh, he didn't even quite run for 4 yards per attempt behind him, but it's also fun that he ran a lot more gap scheme stuff, which makes sense if you know Northwestern. They are a lot more power counter than some of these other teams, so it's kind of fun that he's done a little bit more of both zone and gap scheme stuff. He's another guy who played a little bit of guard earlier in his career at Northwestern. So got some versatility to him, got some intelligence. I think the first thing that stood out when I watched him, though, was he had great feet. Really, really incredible feet for a guy who's 315 pounds. Showed the ability to drive his feet on contact in the run game, like we talked about.
Yeah.
Showed the ability to pull as a left tackle, getting to the next level in zone runs. Shuffling his feet to stop pass rush counters. So like a guy gets up the field, he tries to counter back inside, I can move my feet and stop him. And he's just always on balance with great base because he has such good feet. Again, we talked about earlier getting kind of repetitive in some of the things that we say about some of these offensive linemen, but it is true.
Yeah.
So we're going to highlight this game he had. Really, you're going to see a lot of clips from this Michigan game from 2 years ago.
Yeah,
It's him against Aiden Hutchinson. And,
Yeah.
Aiden Hutchinson was a really good player this year as a rookie. And Skoronski did a great job against him, I'll tell you. So you just see here, those feet, doesn't let Hutchinson beat him up the field. Boom. Just great feet. Stops him on the counter rush back inside. Great job. Here he is again. Boom. Hutchinson tries to spin on him. Not letting that happen either. Just great feet. Really good balance too. Here he is right here. He's going to try and pull inside the hole. Boom. Look at that. Lead blocker for a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's a like 70-yard touchdown that he was the lead blocker in the hole for. Little pin pull action. Here he is again. Ojabo trying to get up the field on him. Nope. Sorry. Great feet. Can't do it. Here he is again against Hutchinson. Now he's going to run the zone against Hutch, and he's going to reach block Hutchinson, which means he gets around the outside of him, keeps Hutchinson out of his gap. Here he's again against Ojabo. Opens the hole again. Like, it's run, it's pass. It's against two great players who have shown that in the next level. Here he's against Purdue. Just moving guys, finishing. Yeah. Again, against Purdue right here. Like, you can see there's just so much tape of him with these excellent feet. I think.
Speaking to what you just said about him, like finishing through the plays, he's enthusiastic because he's just playing through the whistle all the time. He just won't let up. He's definitely putting some work through the whistle.
For sure. I think most people. This is an underrated part of playing offensive line. I think most people think of offensive linemen as just like, much like linebackers on defense, like just like meathead guys who just go bang their head against somebody in front of them, right?
Yeah.
I do think, unfortunately, there's a perception that like offensive linemen are not smart or linebackers are not smart. There is that like unfortunate idea that like, oh, these guys are stupid. They just go ram their head into people in front of them. If you've played, coached, watched enough football, you understand like offensive linemen have to be really smart. Some of the smarter guys right next to quarterback, just because you have to identify defensive fronts, movement along a front right before or even during a play, process that information in real time, and then apply what you just saw and make sure that within the scheme of what you're doing, you block it correctly. I mean, one missed block can derail a play. Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that comes into play when you're doing like the reach blocks, right? You're combo into the back, or you never know if the guy's gonna keep running with the guard or if you got to go up with the tackle or vice versa. You know what I mean? So that's another thing.
You're talking about like notices. Or like, hey, it's a 3-man front, but they just stem to a 4-man front just right now, and now the guy who I'm blocking has to completely change, right? Or hey, it's pass pro and they just ran a little game and I got to pass my guy off and take the next guy. And I just think Skoronski, typical Northwestern guy, right? Super smart, just does a great job of doing all this. He always makes the right decision within the offense when you watch the film. He does a good job. And it makes sense that he played some guard earlier in his career. So he's smart enough to play multiple positions, a lot like what we talked about with Paris Johnson. Here he is again against Northwestern, little 3-man front. See how he passes off the game right there? Yeah. Just did a really good job opening up that hole for his quarterback to take off and run, get the first down on a critical 3rd down in the game. Right guy goes inside. I feel the other guy coming outside. Boom. I'm good enough that I can, boom, pass it off and get back. And I mean, we saw it in plenty of the clips before, like how good he is in the run game at comboing up and making sure he gets the right guy on movement. I just think, he's a really good player that I could go all day about in terms of that. And the last thing is, he has this really nasty quick set. And by quick set, we mean like it's his kick step, but like he just kind of quick sets you and he makes the defender decide. He's like, hey, I'm quick enough that if you want to try and get up the field, I can get up the field with you. But I'm smart, like I'm strong enough that I'm not giving you the inside move right now. So when you watch him pass pro, kind of like DeJuan Jones, but his is even more patient, right? He has this nasty little quick set where he just doesn't let people get up the field because he trusts his quickness. He's just boom, like anchors. Like dude is stonewalled, not going anywhere. You see that a lot on film with him too. And you saw it in some of the other clips against Ojabo and Hutchinson, two of the premier pass rushers in college football that year. He's just for him to have played 33 games and he only gave up 3 sacks. That's once every 11 games. That's so impressive. I don't think people understand how good that is. Like, and he played against some of the premier pass rushers, dude.
Yeah.
So, did you have any combine numbers for him?
Yeah, so he had a lot actually. So his 40 time was a 5.16. The 10 yards with that was a 1.75. He had a vert of 34.5 inches. His broad was a 9.7. He did 30 reps on the bench and did the 3 cone in 7.8 seconds.
Nice. The 30 reps on the bench is pretty good too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a strong dude. That tracks. I mean, I like him a lot. I think he should be a consistent starter at left tackle for whatever franchise drafts him. He's good in pass protection. He's efficient in zone blocking schemes. He can even play well in gap schemes with, limited ability to pull a little bit, which is like really rare to have a guy who's good at all those things at the left tackle position. I just think he's a rare athlete that plays left tackle. Reminds me a lot of another Northwestern guy who came out a couple of years ago, Rashawn Slater. The Northwestern is just putting out left tackles at this point. So here's some rookie Rashawn Slater against that Washington football team a couple of years ago. Just see how he anchors with those great feet. Similar deal. Same thing here. Just quick set, great feet, anchors. I think just very similar kind of players. Can't bull rush him either. He's too strong. And that's why he's able to quick set like that. He's like that little quick set where I'm quick enough you can't get up the field on me. I'm strong enough that you're not going to go through me. Nasty combo of strengths. So he reminds me a lot of Rashawn Slater to me. Again, he's in that similar range that I see with Paris Johnson. Some people have him going first. Some people have Paris Johnson going first. I like both of them a lot. I think they're both like legitimately Pro Bowl left tackles. And it's so rare you can say that in one draft that you might have 2 left tackles that end up being Pro Bowlers. But I really think that with these 2 guys, I think they're both incredibly talented, physically gifted, intelligent, just coming from really good programs. They were asked to do a lot in college. They played multiple positions. It's just like both these guys. I just can't imagine either one of these guys not being really good NFL players. And obviously that means one of them or both of them won't be good because I'm saying that. But like I think they're both I think they're really good players. I can't imagine that either one of these guys is not a great left tackle in the league. So pick 7 through 20, somewhere in there is what I'm seeing. Again, Bears, Jets, Titans, Raiders. Some of those same.
Basically. Yeah.
Yes, the usual suspects here. I think he would fit just the same reason I talked about Paris Johnson with the Titans. I think he would fit with the Titans really well too.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Like if the Bears take Paris Johnson Jr., then the Titans should take Peter Skoronski. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel. I don't know. Is there anybody else that I'm not seeing on this that we're not seeing, or somebody that stands out to you, Joe?
I mean, you briefly mentioned them last time. I think we could do the Rams. I think they could improve.
Wish they had a
early
pick in the first round. Like,
yeah,
I think it'd take a lot to get up to get him. I would not be mad if they were able to do it. Just the capital it would probably take to get up there to get him is probably not.
You're not wrong.
It's probably not possible.
7 through 20, it's definitely not possible. But I mean that'd be a good good spot for
If he
him.
started falling and he got to 20, then maybe the trade up from 36 to 20 is more reasonable. But
Yeah.
to get up to the top 10, where I think he'll probably end up being drafted, that's, at least top 15. That's tough.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's time to rank these guys. I got a little sneak of your rankings, Joe. I think we're real similar here.
Yeah, when I was
I'll
filling
let you
them
go
out,
first.
yeah, and I was filling them out, I was like, I had to do a quick watch again because I wasn't too sure how I felt with these dudes. I did all my notes and stuff, and then I like took a couple days, and I was like, oh, I never really ranked them. I was like, let me go double check. And so when I was putting them in, I seen you already had yours up, and I looked, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, quick snapshot. We're pretty much the same people, but at least in terms of the tackles, I know when I saw the D line, we're gonna bounce to
Oh,
here.
we're going to
It
fight when we
wasn't,
talk about
yeah.
D-line.
But yeah, so getting into the rankings for these tackles. First off, I got Paris Johnson. I mean, I talked about that dude for like an hour, and in terms of an hour, I mean, like I probably said 10 sentences compared to my normal 3 or something, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Paris Johnson, I mean, you had him listed literally 1A, 1B. I
Yep.
agree. It was tough to take, and I felt the same way with 3 and 4. We had them
Yep.
flipped, I think, and I
Yep.
felt like I could those were interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Paris Johnson number 1, Peter Karonsky number 2. We just talked about them. Both smart kids,
Yeah.
very, very high ceilings.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see where they go and see them play.
Yeah. I
Number
agree.
3, Broderick Jones out of Georgia for me. I mean, he has plenty of things he could do. I said he was good at pulling, good at pass pro, and he's quick. So yeah, that correlates with with him pulling. Liked him there, number 3. Darnell Wright out of Tennessee, had him at 4. But same thing, good pass pro. He's patient in the pass pro, lets everything play out. Then he gets the punch off. And then lastly, DeJuan Jones. I mean, in terms of size, that probably why I wouldn't want him and out of these 5. But
Yeah.
I mean, still size, like you said, you can't coach that. So that's my knock is also someone else's like
Yeah.
positive. So
Agreed.
yeah, that's my rankings for these 5.
It is funny. We're almost dead on the same. I mean, I've got Paris Johnson and Peter Skoronski 1A, 1B. I think they're both. I'm just gonna say I think they're both generational tackles. I think they're both legitimately that good. I like them both a lot. Even as we're sitting here talking, I'm sitting here asking myself, are they too low on my overall draft board, which I will reveal at some point. I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. I may have to go back and like move these guys up a little bit because I do think they're that good. Darnell Wright at 3 and Broderick Jones at 4. I agree with you. It's really hard. I went back and forth. You could argue, especially because Broderick Jones plays left tackle and Darnell Wright plays right tackle. It's very easy to flip these guys in terms of, again, perceived value of left tackle versus right tackle. But I really like Darnell Wright's nastiness. And I think Broderick Jones, what came to it is Darnell Wright had played in so many more games than Broderick Jones. And that's kind of where that was like my tiebreaker, even though one plays left tackle and one plays right. They were really close for me, but I do like Darnell Wright's ability to come in and play right away and be polished and more ready. I think Broderick Jones may need a little bit of seasoning just because he hasn't played in as many games, a little more inexperienced and raw, but athletically so gifted. So yes, 3 and 4 are really close, and then 5 is kind of a distant 5 compared to the other 4 for all the stuff that we talked about. DeJuan Jones, but again, has so many things you can't coach that I do think he has a chance to be really good as a right tackle. Some other guys, just honorable mentions, guys that are kind of higher in mocks that I do like when you watch them on film. Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, Carter Warren from Pittsburgh, Cody Mock from North Dakota State is sneaky, like could be really good, dude. Like I do like him a lot. And then Blake Freeland from BYU is a freak athlete for a tackle. He is like, if you look at his combine numbers, you'd be like, whoa. His film doesn't quite like shock you as much as some of these other guys, like in terms of just being, good, and the explosion doesn't show up, I felt like, as much on film as it did at the combine, but his combine numbers are crazy. So those are just some other guys to look for that will probably be picked in the second and third rounds that are going to be good players too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, I really like this tackle group, especially the top four. I think those top four guys are all going to be really good. I like the top two. Obviously, I said they're like generational left tackle type guys. Right, I think, can be a top 5 right tackle in the league. I think Broderick Jones can be a really productive starter for multiple years, and I think DeJuan Jones, I'm not sure where he's at yet. I have a feeling he could be really good. I just think there's going to be some seasoning, but yeah, I like all these guys.
Yeah, I will say, quick note that you reminded me of when you were talking about Wright being having more time in his playing career for college, is that just the top two are young. This fool Paris Johnson, and he's 21.
Yep,
about to go to the league. Like it's a lot of time to play in the league for sure.
Yeah, no doubt,
that
dude.
was another quick note I wanted to get off. And I brought up Blake Freeland's numbers. This guy seems like an athlete for sure.
I told you he's crazy,
4.98 on the 40, 168 on his split, 37-inch vert, 10 feet broad jump, 7.46 on the 3-cone, and a 4.71 on that shuttle.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Like freak athlete for a tackle. He
didn't bench though. That's suspect.
It's us. Yeah, he's freak athlete, which is why I mentioned him. Like his tape isn't as good, but athletically, it's like, dude, how can you not mention this guy? So I had to. So I guess we'll close out the tackles here with a banger of the week.
Oh yeah.
Who? I don't know whose turn it is. It's been 2 weeks.
I think it's me.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Man, this is gonna be tough. I was unprepared for this one this time.
Dude, I was kind of unprepared too.
That's why
I'm glad you're taking the L right now.
Yeah, no. Let me pull up a quick playlist. See who we're working with.
Oh, dude, I got you right now.
You got me. All right, I'll get prepared for the next one.
Yeah, I got you. You know what? So we're gonna shout out our guy Ray.
Yeah,
because I listened to his new EP. Yeah, he's got like a little four pack of songs. It's literally called A Pack for Her.
Yeah,
and I like them all. I think my favorite one is probably
mine was Another Heartbreak for me.
Yeah, Another Heartbreak's good. I think Keep You Waiting is mine because he has the feature. Whoever the guy he is that featured is really good too.
I'm looking at it right now.
I'm on. Yeah, that guy's good. So yeah, I liked all 4 songs though. I thought they were pretty good, especially for being like a little more like it's definitely rap, but it's a little more R&B ish. Got a little more like lovey doveyness. I mean, it's literally called A Pack for Her. So he's in his Drake mode right now. He's trying to do a little something for everyone, and I respect it because he did a good job. So shout out to Ray. If you're looking for new music, Ray Riley, A Pack for Her EP. 4 songs on it that I think are pretty good. So check them out. I think I thought they were bangers personally. And that's not just because
he's our guy.
Ray's my friend from high school, but
yeah.
so legitimately, I thought they were good.